Hello. It's been quite a while, hasn't it? Yeah, trust me, I've noticed too. Yeah, I've been away for some time mainly because my personal time has been taken up with trying to avoid roving gangs of outlaws and criminals and why am I saying criminals? There's no such thing as the law in my dimension. Dimensional stuff, I don't really want to get into it because a lot of it is quite scary and intense, and half of it I don't even understand what's going on. Oh, 2 seconds. That's what I fucking thought. Christ. Anyway, yes, it has been some time. I didn't really have a plan for New Year's or Christmas. I wanted to have Daredevil Part 8 up, but the file corrupted. I'm not even joking, it genuinely did. I think my current application for editing stuff has run its course, so I'll need to look into an alternative. Making long videos will do that, I suppose. But it does give me time to redraft and rewrite some of the script, because I wasn't really happy with it, if I'm honest. So yeah, that's that plan kind of out the window, but I want to get something out before 2022 comes around and fucks us all in the ass. So I figured, why not just have a little ramble about the stuff I've seen or experienced over the holiday period. Your holiday period anyway, fuck knows there's no holidays where I am. So yeah, this isn't going to be particularly well scripted, it might be snarky, it might be funny, maybe you'll enjoy a little bit of my commentary on these things, but whatever. Let's just get to it. So basically in Cyberpunk you play as an individual named V. This being an RPG, you can fill in the backstory and personal appearance of V with pretty much whatever you want. After a heist gone wrong, you basically have a limited time and Keanu Reeves squawking in your brain, and so you must figure out a way to get that squawking out of your brain and not die in the process, while navigating a dystopian/utopian cyberpunk city. Night City. I've been playing a lot of Cyberpunk. Like, a lot. Cyberpunk 2077 is a good game. It's buggy, yes, the launch was awful. I would not recommend buying it at full price. Absolutely not. Hold on to your dosh. But if it goes on sale, comes to about $25, $30, yeah, get it then. The story is gripping. Keanu Reeves isn't just a cameo, he's a actually very integral part of the plot. He doesn't just come in, say gamers are cool, and then leaves. The choices in the game are actually kind of impactful and change how you interact with certain characters. Standard for an RPG, but I was surprised they actually did that. For a AAA studio, having actually meaningful consequences in your game is actually kind of surprising. The gameplay is fun, man. It's so good. The guns are excellent. I'm a sucker for cyberpunk guns, mainly because they're kind of similar to the guns I have in my dimension. Like wee Susie. I always remember the day we fell in love. Wait, what the fuck am I talking about? Ah yeah, cyberpunk. Is it perfect? No. I've had a couple cutscenes of characters walking around with their arms out in what I assume is a mating call, a cyberpunk mating dance ritual thing. And sometimes audio glitches out, so it sounds like someone's talking from far away on the radio when they're actually right next to you, so there's no fucking point in polluting the air with electricity talking on the radio. The vibe and aesthetic of Night City is really well done. It gives off the correct level of punk aesthetic with the whole cybernetic enhancement shit. And you get to select whether you have a massive PP or not. For that alone, it gets a recommendation. Plus Panam. Panam's just best girl. Panam's good. Panam, yeah. Yes to Panam. It's just good. Like, yeah, we've memed on it and we've made fun of it, and rightfully so, because in the state it was in, it shouldn't have been released. But a year later, yeah, I would say it's worth getting. Still not perfect, but definitely worth your time. Especially if you like RPGs, fancy guns, and getting it on with anyone of any type. I was going to try and make some kind of stereotypical joke there, but it's cyberpunk in the future, so really any inclination you have, you'll be able to fulfill. That's another thing I'm going to bring up. The amount of sexual imagery in this game, I actually must respect. That is cyberpunk. If they had not done it to this level, it wouldn't really fit. It would be some watered down version of cyberpunk. that your Grandma Lizzie probably sprinkles water on in the morning with her tomatoes. But they didn't. They chocked this thing full of sexual imagery. The leveling up system's really fascinating too. It actually feels like your choices and what you upgrade make a difference to fighting and stuff like that. Combat is fluid, there's plenty of options for whatever path you choose to take. Personally, the way I play games is the first time I play them how I personally would want to experience this story. And if it's good enough, I'll play it a couple other times and I'll properly dive in fully and commit to a storyline that I think would fit, like a proper stealthy hacker type or a big tanky bastard. Not tanky as in the political affiliation, but the physical embodiment of that. As in soaking up bullets and having a massive turret come out of your face. So yeah, overall, Cyberpunk, it's been memed about, yeah, fair enough. And in the state it was in, it definitely shouldn't have been released, but play it at least once. I recommend everyone to play it at least once. If only to fall in love with Judy, because she's just awesome. Even if you're not quite what she would be into, she's still awesome. Yeah, Cyberpunk 2077 gets a full recommendation from me. Scrooge is a Christmas comedy film starring Bill Murray, released in 1988. Bill Murray plays a man called Frank Cross, who is essentially the 20th century equivalent of Ebenezer Scrooge, the infamous individual from the Charles Dickens novel A Christmas Carol, who famously hates Christmas and does not possess the Christmas cheer. It's basically a modern day retelling rendition of that story, but with Bill Murray. How does that not sound amazing? Basically, Frank Cross doesn't like Christmas, is a bit of a stingy arsehole, treats his staff like crap on the holidays, is out to make a quick buck on Christmas time. And so he's visited by 3 spirits, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future, to let him know what happens if he stays on this path, and to give some context as to why he feels this way. It's hilarious, heartfelt, Bill Murray can act. He's not just a funny man, the dude can actually act. His rants are gold, honestly. And in the end, it's just got a positive message about not losing sight of the holiday spirit. Even when one of those spirits is a giant skeleton that wouldn't look out of place in a He-Man porno. It's kind of an indictment on consumerism as well, the fact that Frank Cross is just willing to give up all Christmas time with his family or friends, if he's even got any, and also forcing his employees to work on Christmas Eve despite the fact that they have other plans naturally. Then by the end he realizes that's not very nice to do. It's not a revolutionary story, but it's good. Yeah, Scrooge is funny, it's heartfelt, it's quite sad. It covers all the bases of a good Christmas holiday movie. Not quite as good as Groundhog Day, but it is good. It's worth a watch at least. Now for something on the totally opposite end of the spectrum, but still in a way as cynical, if not more so, is Krampus, the 2015 Christmas-themed horror film. In Krampus, a boy's cousins and uncle and auntie come over for Christmas time, and if you've ever had Christmas time with any of these relatives, you'll know it can be an uncomfortable experience, especially if you're American, apparently. Anyway, things don't go very well. Drama and tension just start happening because of the differences in personality between all the people. This wee guy loses his faith in Christmas, tears up a letter intended for Santa and chucks it out the window, thereby summoning the dark equivalent of Santa Claus, Krampus, a being who comes not to give the Christmas cheer, but to take the cheer away from those who have forgotten the meaning of Christmas, and punish those who would defame such a pleasant holiday. Krampus is interesting, in that it inhabits a weirdly undertouched realm of entertainment and storytelling. Christmas horror isn't really done very much. Scrooge has a little bit of that in the Ghost of Christmas Future, but it's not the focal point of the story. Krampus is a horror film. I mean, it's kind of comedic too, but there's some harrowing, unsettling imagery in this film. Krampus comes and torments the family with gingerbread men that come alive, and the twisted equivalent of his elves. And this friggin' thing that's awful to look at, to be honest. It looks like a festive version of the human centipede. Funnily enough, Krampus actually has decent characterization. Like when the hillbilly uncle wants to leave to find his son who's been taken by one of the gingerbread men and his hook. I believed him when he wanted to go. Is it an irrational move, given the situation? Yes. However, given this man's character that has been established thus far, it actually makes sense. So an illogical but character-based motivation for an action in the story. For a Christmas and horror-themed film, that's good. More stories should have character-based but illogical motivations for things. Just so happens it's in a Christmas-themed horror film, so that makes it somehow more impressive. The practical effects are really good too. This thing actually looks horrible. The elves are really creepy and twisted, despite only appearing for a brief period. The design of Krampus is threatening and scary, and you don't want to experience it. There's a stop-motion segment in the film that is really well done. It's really visually interesting, and it does capture the spirit of a holiday scary story quite well. And the imagery is really compelling. Is it an amazing masterpiece of a film? No, it's not on a technical level like Scrooge is, for instance. My interpretation of the ending is quite cynical, just because that's kind of just how I am, which just adds to the gravity of the whole story, if I'm honest. Yeah, if you're a fan of practical effects, Christmas horror, or just horror in general, and also a scathing indictment of materialism in the first 5 minutes of a movie, and what happens when you forget the true spirit of Christmas in the same vein as Scrooged, then watch Krampus. It gets my recommendation too. Now for something that's not quite got the same level of appeal. The King's Man. As I've mentioned before, I am a sucker for World War I themed stories. I find those very compelling. You guys seem to be very good at starting wars to end all wars. And I also really liked Kingsman: The Secret Service, so when there was a Kingsman movie set in the First World War, sounds more amazing than a talking dog that shits money. In practice, it's... So basically the story is, it's a fantasized, to an extent, version of the build-up to the First World War. The Kingsman Agency, before it was officially the Kingsman Agency, because we don't want to create any plot holes in this story, apparently, comes together to stop this cabal of villains from destroying the world, I'll say, by igniting a war between all the major powers of the globe. It's only been out for a couple days, so I'm going to refrain from too many spoilers. Yes, it's an exaggerated First World War story that depicts Rasputin as, well, Rasputin. Funnily enough, as weird as he is, he's probably the most accurate to how he actually was, so that's good, actually. But really, the film itself is more at war with itself than my self-esteem and my self-deprecation. And trust me, that's a significant war. It bounces between tones very jarringly. As a Scotsman, the story and the motivation for the villains seems very, very strange. And I wouldn't be surprised if they toned it down a little bit, just to avoid more anti-English resentment from stirring up in Scotland. Because trust me, we've got enough of that already. The film seems to want to tell a compelling, tragic story about the First World War, and also the exaggerated 60s Bond-esque tone that we've come to expect from the Kingsman franchise. And also very heavy-handed social political commentary that is made quite apparent in the first 5 minutes. Now, social political commentary in films is nothing new, we've seen a lot of that. But man, Kingsman: The Golden Circle and The King's Man treat it so heavy-handedly, I wouldn't be surprised if my fucking skull caved in while watching it. Now, it's fine to have social political commentary in your movie, but you have to weave it into the story and don't make it so jarring that it seems totally out of place. Like Jeffrey Epstein at an old folks swingers hotel. There's one scene I actually very much like, which is a massive melee on No Man's Land. I thought that was the best scene in the entire film. It was tense, it was badass, it was cool. It was interesting from a character perspective as well, if still a little iffy in that sense. But sadly, moments like that are just all too fleeting for this movie. There's a sword fight at the end, which I actually like. I see some actual technique in this sword duel, which I appreciate. And it seems humorously quaint to end a film with a swashbuckling moment like this. But hey, it was fun. Plenty of moments are heavily contrived and silly, frankly. And even if you don't care for those moments of contrivance, then it's still not... It's not very good. And a couple of cool moments, a couple of interesting characters isn't enough to elevate it above the slog. So no recommendation for The King's Man, unfortunately. Fuck, I really wanted to like it. I like Kingsman. And I like World War One, but apparently they go together like Jaffa cakes and cum, unless you're into that sort of thing. Well, that's about it. I don't think there was any other movies, was there? Nothing else? No big comic book movies, no? Nah, don't think there was anything. I don't think I've missed anything. Oh shit, hello Spider-Man No Way Home. What are you doing sitting over there in the corner, threateningly with a baseball bat? Yes, I did finally see Spider-Man No Way Home. Haha, sue me. I'm a bit late, what can I say? My dimensional tech has taken a step backwards. I don't know if I've mentioned this before. But hey, I did finally see it, so I'm going to talk about that briefly. After the events of Far From Home, Spider-Man's true identity has revealed itself to the world because of Mysterio. And so Peter Parker must balance him trying to wriggle out of this difficult situation with the help of Doctor Strange, and also figuring out what it truly means to be Spider-Man, because we haven't had enough of that already. I'm going to be honest, it's practically impossible for me to talk about this film without getting into spoilers, so this is your warning. If you don't want spoilers for Spider-Man No Way Home, then please skip past this to this specific time code if I can be bothered to put one up. So the usual cast of characters returns for Spider-Man No Way Home. That is Tom Holland as Spider-Man, Marissa Tomei as Aunt May for about 2/3 of the movie. Zendaya is MJ, who I'm just not a fan of, to be honest. Jacob Batalon as Ned, and a couple of others. As you saw from the trailers, Otto Octavius is back, because the spell that Strange tries to do in order to wipe everyone's memories of Spider-Man being Peter Parker fucks with the multiverse. And so, in this film, there are a bunch of past Spider-Man characters from the past Spider-Man movies. Now, is Spider-Man No Way Home well written? Well, no. But did I have fun with it? Oh yes, I did. It was fucking wild to see Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland as Spider-Man / Peter Parker in scenes together. That was honestly weird, to put it mildly. It was probably one of the most fun experiences I've had in the cinema. The sense of nostalgia that this film has is really, really, really strong. And I'm going to be honest, plot-wise, character-wise, is it well written? For the most part, no, but there are standouts. Andrew Garfield is actually really good. I don't mean just in terms of acting, the dude outacts pretty much everyone in this film. But his character, his Peter Parker, is actually really, really well done. Unironically. He saves MJ in a scene that is actually very well done, I'll admit. Because he wasn't able to save Gwen in his movies, he's able to get a chance of redemption here. And you see that in his face. It's very well done. It's very good. Willem Dafoe is back as Green Goblin, and honestly, performance-wise and character-wise, he might be one of my favourite villains in the MCU now. Like that scene where Tom Holland is just punching him, and then he just starts laughing harder. Reminded me of Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. It was unhinged, he was awful, he was scary, and he was threatening. Hallmarks of a good villain right there. Plus it's Willem Dafoe. Everyone fucking loves Willem Dafoe for some reason. And no, it's not just because of Antichrist. Although that's probably some of it. And probably because of this line too. Also, your boy Matt Murdock is now canonical in the MCU. The movies anyway, he was in the show obviously. But now he is legitimately canon in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. I'm thankful he wasn't in the movie long enough for them to truly fuck him up, because I just didn't trust the writers of this film to deal with him in the same level that the Netflix show treated him. But his scene was actually really good, and on a personal level, it was just amazing to see Charlie Cox back. I love the dude. I love his character. It was fun to see him. Do I trust them not to fuck him up going forward in the MCU? Hell no, but on a personal level, it was nice to see him again, albeit briefly. The scene of the three Peters is heartbreakingly good. You can tell all three of these actors do revere their characters and the stories they've taken. Plus the nostalgic characters are actually characters, they're not just there for fan service. The fan service is there naturally, but the characters actually have things to do. They have dialogue with the other characters. They have character defining moments. I mean, I've only seen the film once, I'll be honest. But man, it was a nostalgia trip. I just hope it ages well, unlike some nostalgia trip movies of the past couple years. But for the moment, Spider-Man No Way Home. Plot-wise, well written, I'm going to go with no. Character-wise, so-so. Some characters are really good, others aren't so much. But is it fun? Oh yeah. Is it nostalgic? Oh yes. Did I personally love it? Yeah, I did. I'll say that. Whether it's good is another matter. I still need to actually think about that, because it being good is different from me personally loving it. But for the moment, yeah. If you're a Spider-Man fan, go see No Way Home. If you're a movie fan, go see it. It's a celebration of the past 20 years of comic book movies, with probably the most popular superhero of all time as the focal point of that. It's worth seeing for that alone. Plus, you're eventually going to have it spoiled for you anyway, so you may as well. So yes, Spider-Man No Way Home gets a personal recommendation, simply because it's fun and nostalgic, and yeah, I liked it. Loved it even, fuck it. I'll need to reflect and think whether it's actually good, though. I just hope they don't try and do this again, to this extent anyway. It'd be like when the entire world had another go at the coronavirus pandemic. That wasn't very fun, was it? And there we go, that is kind of the unscripted end of my year as Scowl. Yeah, I did a little bit of rebranding. I took the Chumley out of my name, although you still see it here. It makes more sense for me to just refer to the channel as Scowl. Chumley is kind of hard to pronounce, it confuses people, and to be honest, I can't fucking be bothered explaining it anymore. But hey, I appreciate you watching if you stuck around this long for this unscripted ramble of stupid proportions. I have other projects in the works. Obviously Daredevil episode 8 will happen. I'm going to get through season 1 next year. That's a guarantee. That's going to happen. I have a couple other videos in the works, a couple other writing projects, but Daredevil: A Masterpiece is my main point of focus, because it's my baby. I need to finish that at least. I appreciate everyone sticking around for another year. I know the second half of this year was very dry in terms of content. It was drier than Hillary Clinton's vagina and her soul. But hey, if you've still subscribed, you're still watching the stuff, you're still liking the stuff, I appreciate you more and more as the days go on. You're like a growth on my skin. I'm attached to you, whether you like it or not. I know things are a bit shit right now in terms of the world. In fact, they've been shit for some time. But if I can bring some semblance of joy and appreciation in your life from my dimension, then I consider that a win. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in 2022. Cheers.